Hello everyone, and welcome back to Anime Dreams. Today, we continue with an exciting journey into the world of what-if scenarios. Our topic is: what if Naruko became a demigod's ally? Part 3. Before we dive in, a quick disclaimer: the content on this channel is created purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage used in these videos. Full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. Now, let's jump straight into the story. Naruko finally returned to her cabin after wandering off during one of her energetic bursts of curiosity. She lightly scolded herself for letting her playful side distract her from the maturity she wished to embody. Shaking her head, she paused when she noticed something unusual. The cabin door was slightly open. Approaching quietly, she peeked inside. A soft glow shimmered from the center of the room. At its source stood a cloaked figure, still and silent, as though lost in thought. Naruko's eyes widened when the figure suddenly turned and lifted a hand, pointing directly toward her. "You there, come closer," the voice instructed. Though firm, the tone carried no menace, and Naruko cautiously stepped inside. As she walked, she noticed her personal chest was open, its contents clearly disturbed. Her mind raced, formulating possible ways to confront this mysterious visitor. Just as the thought formed, the cloaked figure pulled back their hood, revealing a radiant young woman. Naruko froze, struck by the woman's beauty. Her hazel eyes glowed with golden pupils, warm and comforting rather than piercing. Her hair, also golden, cascaded down like sunlight itself. "So, you must be Naruko," the woman said gently. Oddly enough, Naruko felt at ease in her presence. The stranger gracefully produced two objects, one wrapped in silky cloth and the other a pair of elegant, shining glasses. Naruko blinked. Glasses? Luxurious ones, no less? She tilted her head in puzzlement but accepted them carefully. Then she unwrapped the cloth and found what appeared to be a small portable fan. No offense, but is this supposed to be a toy?" Naruko asked honestly. To her surprise, the woman chuckled softly, a sound light and rare. "Such innocence. It has been long since I've heard words so unguarded." With a serene smile, she explained, "That fan functions much like your treasured necklace. It is not what it first appears to be." Curious, Naruko pressed a button at its base. At once, dazzling light filled the cabin. When it faded, Naruko was astonished to see a golden-handled tachi in her hands. Its blade shimmered like polished brass, emitting a faint hum. As she held it, the sword felt perfectly balanced, almost as if it had always belonged to her. "Wow! This is amazing," Naruko exclaimed, swinging it carefully. "Glad to see you appreciate the gift," the woman replied with a faint smirk. "But I already have a sword," Naruko said, summoning her katana and presenting it. The woman simply gestured for it. When Naruko handed it over, it vanished in golden light. Naruko let out a dramatic squeal, "My precious sword. It would not have been strong enough for the challenges you are destined to face," the woman explained patiently. "This tachi, however, is crafted from celestial bronze, a metal capable of protecting you against mystical threats. And it is no ordinary blade, it was once wielded by a divine hand. Its name is Katabatikos, or more simply, Crosswind." Naruko's eyes shone with admiration. "A god used this?" she whispered. The woman shook her head. "Not necessarily Poseidon, though you are his daughter. This gift comes from elsewhere." Naruko frowned in thought. Then her expression brightened with a sudden idea. "Wait. Was it my mother's?" The woman inhaled sharply, caught off guard. After a pause, she nodded. "Yes. It belonged to your mother." Naruko held the sword closer, her heart swelling. "Then, who was she?" "I cannot answer that," the woman said gently. "Only your parents can reveal that truth." She turned as if preparing to leave. "Then at least tell me who you are," Naruko pressed. "Why are you connected to my father?" The woman hesitated, then sighed. "I was once admired across the heavens for my beauty and presence, envied even by goddesses. But pride clouded my heart, and in my arrogance, I offended another. For my folly, I was cast into exile and transformed into a flowing stream, destined to remain unseen and unheard. It was your father, master of the seas, who discovered me. He showed me kindness, granting me freedom in exchange for my service until I found peace once more. That is why I stand before you now, to deliver these gifts, your mother's treasures." Naruko listened intently, her curiosity mixing with sympathy. "Then, what is your name?" "You may call me Aura, goddess of the breeze," the woman replied with quiet grace. "My gift is the power of wind, swift and unyielding." "She can control the wind?" Naruko thought in surprise. But Annabeth said she didn't know of any goddess without that ability. Shaking her head, Naruko decided she would need to have a conversation with her later. Now that I believe I've explained enough of my past to you, I should take my leave. The woman gave a polite bow before heading toward the door. Naruko nodded, watching her carefully. Just as she was about to step out, she paused. Oh, I nearly forgot. Those sunglasses are very important for your quest, she said kindly. Why do I need sunglasses? Naruko asked, tilting her head with curiosity. You'll understand when the moment comes, Aura replied softly, bowing once more. As she turned away, a single tear slid down her cheek. Be strong, my precious child. Before more of her emotion could show, her form transformed into a gentle current of wind that flowed out the door, leaving only a faint breeze behind. Naruko was left in thought, clutching her hair in frustration. Why are girls so complicated? She muttered, recalling a certain friend's words. With that, she began gathering everything she would need for the journey ahead. Near Talia's tree the next morning. A girl sat patiently beneath a large pine tree. She had arrived an hour early, punctual as always. Though she had slept decently, the dreams that visited her made her cheeks burn with embarrassment. Really, Mom? She muttered to herself. When I asked for guidance, I didn't mean that. If she hadn't known her mother was Athena, the wise and noble maiden goddess, she might have thought her mother simply had an odd sense of humor. Still, none of it helped her understand her feelings toward a certain someone. Why is she just so adorable? She thought, hiding her face in her hands. She was so lost in her thoughts that she didn't notice two figures walking up to her. Yo, wise girl, should we get started or wait a little longer? Naruko teased with a cheerful grin, while her companion chuckled. Annabeth startled before glaring at Naruko. Not funny, Whiskers. Naruko tilted her head, surprised. Whiskers? Since when do you call me that? Annabeth shrugged. Well, you call me wise girl. It's only fair I return the favor. Naruko laughed lightly and then glanced around. So, why are we meeting here? This is our pickup spot, Annabeth explained, tapping her chin thoughtfully. Though I'm curious why Argus isn't here yet with the vehicle. Before she could continue, a beam of golden light shone from the sky, forming a circle before them. When the brilliance faded, a sleek, unusual-looking car stood in its place. What is that? Naruko asked, eyes wide. That's our ride? Percy guessed uncertainly. Naruko tilted her head. How can that strange thing take us anywhere? It looks like a big block of metal. Just then, a young-looking man stepped out of the car. He wore a sleeveless white shirt, blue jeans, loafers, and dark sunglasses. A wide grin stretched across his face. Excuse me, the man said in a playful tone, did you just call my car a block of metal? Naruko crossed her arms. Well, that's what it looks like. The man removed his sunglasses, revealing glowing golden eyes fixed intently on her. He walked over and tapped Naruko lightly on the shoulder. That's not just a car. That's Betty. Show some respect. Naruko blinked, then let out a laugh. Wait, you named it Betty? That's hilarious. The man frowned. Don't make fun of her name. It's perfect. Before long, Naruko and the glowing-eyed stranger were wrestling around playfully on the ground like children. Percy and Annabeth could only stare in disbelief. What's happening? Percy whispered. Annabeth groaned, rubbing her forehead. Honestly, I shouldn't even be surprised. Of course Apollo would act like this. At the mention of his name, the man sprang up and pointed dramatically. Hey! Don't call me childish. Naruko leapt to her feet as well. Ha! That's what you get for messing with me, she said with a triumphant grin. Apollo rubbed his face with mock injury. You're spirited, I'll give you that. He gave a charming smile and added, don't worry, I'd never truly harm family. He gave Naruko a thumbs up, which she returned with equal enthusiasm. Annabeth folded her arms. If you're our driver, then where's Argus? Oh, Argus? Hera needed him. So I thought, why not step in? Gives me something fun to do. Apollo opened the car doors. Come on, kids, hop in. We've got places to go. The group climbed inside, buckled up, and with a cheerful laugh, Apollo started the car and sped them off toward their destination. While riding in the car, Naruko let her mind drift back to everything that had happened the night before. It had been so unexpected. The name Aura kept echoing in her thoughts. She was so caught up in her reflections that she didn't hear Annabeth calling until a gentle tap on her head brought her back to reality. Finally, Naruko. I was wondering when you'd notice me. What's on your mind? Annabeth asked with curiosity. Naruko blinked and glanced past her, noticing Percy staring quietly out the window. With a small sigh, Naruko decided to explain what had happened the previous night. What? The one who blessed you as a goddess? Annabeth said in surprise. Naruko nodded. And her name was Aura? Annabeth pressed. Again, Naruko nodded. Listen carefully, Naruko, Annabeth said seriously. The one you met isn't exactly a goddess in the usual sense. She's a titaness. Naruko tilted her head, still unsure where Annabeth was going with this. Annabeth rubbed her forehead, realizing she'd need to explain. She gave a quick history lesson about the Titans, how the Olympians had defeated them, and how only a few who stayed neutral were spared. Even then, they were closely watched and forbidden from having children. Do you see the problem now, Naruko? Annabeth asked. Naruko listened carefully, though she still didn't fully grasp the weight of the situation. Before she could ask more, Apollo spoke from the driver's seat. Naruko, who is your father? He asked. Naruko, caught off guard, stammered before answering, Poseidon. Good. Now, do you remember who he once saved, the one who had been turned into a stream? Apollo continued. Naruko thought for a moment, then answered, Aura. Exactly. Look at that, brilliance shining through, Apollo declared theatrically, though Annabeth rolled her eyes at his antics. All right, less showmanship, more answers, Annabeth said firmly. Apollo chuckled but then grew more serious. Naruko, Aura is actually your mother. The car went quiet except for the steady hum of the engine. Everyone seemed frozen until Percy finally muttered, knew it. Annabeth shot him a sharp look. Be quiet, seaweed brain, she said before turning back to Naruko, who was whispering softly to herself, too faint for anyone else to hear. Are you okay, Naruko? Annabeth asked gently. Why? Why didn't she tell me? She was right there. Naruko burst out, her voice trembling with emotion. Annabeth tried to reassure her, explaining that Naruko's existence had to be kept secret. You are what's called a forbidden child. Poseidon broke one rule by having children, and Aura broke another by having you. That makes you even more at risk. But don't worry, only a very few know the truth, and it keeps you safe. Apollo added with a light-hearted whistle, and that's why finishing this quest quickly is important. The sooner it's done, the safer you'll be. Everyone exhaled with some relief, though tension still lingered. What's the task? Percy asked cautiously. Apollo grinned. That's the spirit. But yes, I do need you to do something in return for the help you're asking for. Annabeth crossed her arms. Let me guess, it won't be simple. Correct, Apollo admitted. I can't just hand over everything you need. The rules forbid it. So, your challenge is this, you must face Medusa. Naruko perked up. All right then, we'll handle it, believe it, she said with determination. Annabeth and Percy both smiled despite their nerves. Apollo chuckled. What an adorable motto you have. Naruko blushed. It's just a habit, okay? Apollo continued, Medusa is no ordinary opponent. She can turn anyone to stone with a glance. That's why you need to be extra careful. Naruko's confidence wavered slightly. What? How are we supposed to deal with that? Annabeth explained calmly, long ago, Perseus defeated her by using his shield as a reflection. But she may not fall for the same trick twice. Apollo admitted that the alternatives weren't easier, a hydra that multiplied its heads, or a lion whose fur could not be pierced. Compared to those, Medusa was the most approachable challenge. After some hesitation, Naruko agreed. Then Medusa it is. Wonderful, Apollo said cheerfully. Her lair is disguised as a garden shop in New Jersey, Auntie M's Gnome Emporium. I'll drive you there myself. Annabeth muttered, you were going to drive us anyway. The ride continued with light chatter, until Percy suddenly asked, wait, shouldn't we have told Dionysus we were leaving? Annabeth assured him Chiron would have informed him. At the mention of Dionysus, Apollo's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. Naruko noticed and politely asked, do you and Mr. D not get along well? Apollo sighed. Let's just say we've had disagreements in the past. He isn't exactly easy to get along with. Naruko nodded slowly, sensing there was more to the story but deciding not to press. To change the subject, Apollo added brightly, by the way, my twin sister Artemis is one of the most amazing goddesses you'll ever hear about. She's strong, wise, and yes, she shares a little of my brilliance. He laughed, clearly proud of his sister. Naruko smiled at his energy, though she shook her head slightly at how over the top he could be. The rest of the ride was calmer, with Apollo assuring them that Hermes was covering his son duties for the day. Though the challenge ahead was daunting, Naruko felt her resolve hardening. Whatever came next, she would face it alongside her friends. "Whatever, we're almost there," the driver muttered, still clearly annoyed at his passengers. Within minutes, the car rolled up to a weathered-looking building. Its sign swung slightly in the breeze, reading, Auntie M's Gnome Emporium. "Well, children, this is the place. Off you go. Remember, this is your quest." "I can't come inside with you," Apollo explained. Everyone nodded and began stepping out, though Apollo raised a hand to stop one particular passenger. "Wait just a moment, Naruko," he said. Naruko turned back, curious. "Yeah? What's up?" Apollo adjusted his sunglasses. "Earlier, I told you Artemis mentioned you. That wasn't the full truth. The real reason I know so much about you is because your father told me." Naruko blinked in surprise. "My father told you? Why?" "I wondered the same thing at first. After you were officially recognized, I spoke with him. Most of Olympus already knew about Percy, but no one seemed aware of you, Naruko. That mystery made me curious. When I finally met your father, he was weary from endless questioning by the other gods. He wanted clarity, especially about the prophecy involving Percy. I kept my oath of honesty and explained what I could. Out of concern for you, he asked me to assist you in your journey. In return for his truth, I offered my support." Naruko tilted her head. "But wait, you said you couldn't lie. Didn't you just say something untrue earlier?" Apollo gave a small grin. "Not quite. You didn't know about my oath, so technically I wasn't deceiving you. Besides, I can bend words around mortals. My sister suspects your existence, though she isn't certain yet." Naruko sighed. "You're confusing." "Maybe so," Apollo admitted with a chuckle. Then his tone grew serious. "But hear me now, Naruko Uzumaki, daughter of Poseidon, when you enter Colorado, avoid the forests. My sister hunts there, and if she discovered who you are, it would put you in great danger." Naruko's eyes widened. "Wait, Artemis was the goddess my mother angered." Apollo gave a quiet nod. "Exactly. So tread carefully." Then, forcing a smile back onto his face, he said cheerfully, "Now, time to face Medusa. Good luck." Naruko climbed out of the car, still pondering his words, before rejoining her friends at the entrance. "What was that about?" Percy asked. "Nothing major," Naruko answered quickly. "But listen, when we get to Colorado, we need to avoid the forested areas." Her friends exchanged puzzled looks but agreed to keep that in mind. Annabeth broke the silence. "All right, strategy time. How are we going to handle Medusa?" Both Naruko and Percy turned toward her expectantly. Annabeth groaned. "Seriously? You're just going to rely on me?" Percy shrugged. "You are the smartest one here." Naruko added, "We trust your judgment." Annabeth tapped her forehead in thought. "It's tricky. One glance at Medusa and we could turn into stone. That limits our options." She began pacing. Naruko frowned. Thinking wasn't her strength, she preferred action. But then a calm, familiar voice whispered in her mind, "You'll know when the moment comes." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a pair of sunglasses her mother had given her. Annabeth's eyes lit up. "Naruko, that's brilliant." She hugged Naruko tightly before quickly pulling back, cheeks warm. Percy just looked confused. How are sunglasses going to help?" he asked. "They let me see her indirectly," Naruko explained patiently. Percy blinked, then smacked his forehead. "Oh. Right. Exactly," Annabeth said proudly. "It's simple and effective." With renewed confidence, the three entered the Emporium. Inside, the place was surprisingly tidy, filled with rows of plants. An elderly woman tended them, humming softly as she worked. Percy whispered, "Naruko, are you sure she's here?" Naruko studied the woman carefully. "I think that's her." "But she just looks kind," Percy argued. "Looks can be deceiving," Annabeth muttered, nudging Naruko forward. Taking a deep breath, Naruko approached and tapped the woman gently on the shoulder. The woman turned slowly, her face hidden by a veil. "Oh my, you startled me," she said kindly, though her tone carried something unsettling. Naruko's instincts flared. A strange sensation tugged at her mind, but she quickly steadied herself. The woman hissed softly. "Interesting. You resisted." With a slow motion, she lifted her veil. Where hair should have been, snakes writhed and hissed. Her eyes gleamed unnaturally yellow. Annabeth and Percy, wisely facing away, didn't see. Naruko tightened her grip on her sword. Remembering the sunglasses, she kept her gaze indirect. With calm determination, she acted quickly, using her light device to disorient the creature. Medusa shrieked, shielding her eyes. Naruko seized the opportunity. In a swift and precise move, she used her blade and subdued the monster, ensuring she could no longer threaten anyone. When the danger passed, she carefully placed the now harmless head into a bag and turned back. "It's safe. You can open your eyes." Annabeth rushed forward, relief flooding her face. She hugged Naruko tightly. "I was so worried." Naruko smiled. "I promised I'd be fine." Percy grinned too. "That was incredible. Though, next time, maybe I should get my own pair of sunglasses." The three friends laughed together, ready for the next step of their journey. "Wow. Your eyes are definitely brighter than the Circassian Sea," Naruko whispered softly to herself. Naruko giggled at her own words, but then decided it was only fair to return the compliment. "Yeah? Well, your eyes are sharper than any blade I've ever seen," she said with a grin, noticing how the other's cheeks turned lightly pink. "Okay, you two, can we please get out of here? This place is giving me the creeps," Percy muttered, pretending not to notice the exchange. When Naruko and her friend realized they were still in a close embrace, they quickly stepped apart and offered shy apologies. "Now that we've handled Medusa, how are we supposed to contact Apollo?" Naruko asked, uncertain of the next step. Fortunately, Annabeth was already thinking ahead. She walked over to a nearby fountain, studying it carefully until her eyes sparkled with recognition. Reaching into the water, she retrieved several large, golden coins. "Aha! Just as I thought. Drachmas," she explained, rubbing the coins between her fingers. "Drachmas?" Percy and Naruko asked together, tilting their heads. Annabeth nodded. "It's the currency of the gods. I can use these to send an iris message with the mist from the fountain." She tossed one coin into the spray and raised her hand respectfully. "Oh Iris, goddess of the rainbow, please accept this offering." Instantly, the mist shimmered to life. "Apollo," Annabeth called firmly. The mist rippled, revealing the sun god himself lounging on a couch with a wide, confident smile. "Hey, everyone. If you're contacting me, that means Medusa's been dealt with, right?" Apollo asked cheerfully. The group nodded, and his grin grew even wider. "Fantastic. In that case, I'll be there. Right now." The image dissolved, and moments later, the sound of a car horn echoed from outside. Exchanging surprised looks, the three hurried out of the building. Waiting for them was Apollo, leaning casually against the hood of his sleek car. "I knew you kids could handle it. Great job," he said, giving them a big thumbs up. "Thanks," Naruko replied, her tone polite but with just a touch of firmness. "But now it's your turn to keep your promise, right?" Apollo chuckled sheepishly but nodded. "Of course. The location of the bow you seek is at a water park in Denver, Colorado." He scratched the back of his neck, looking a little uneasy. Annabeth raised an eyebrow. "And what's so unusual about this water park?" "Oh, nothing unusual at all," Apollo said quickly. "It's just a little outdated, that's all." Then he gestured toward the car. "Well, shall we get going?" The trio shared a glance, then nodded together. They climbed into the car, ready to continue their journey toward Denver, and toward the legacy of Philoctetes that awaited them there. "Say, Percy, have you ever considered trying archery?" A smirking teen wearing sunglasses teased a younger boy with jet black hair. Shut up." The son of Poseidon puffed out defensively. He rubbed his wrists, which were glowing red like cherries. "I never thought the bowstring would sting me more than it did the target." With a chuckle, the sun god lifted the bow from Percy's hands, where it dissolved into golden sparkles. "Kid, I won't sugarcoat it, you're not great at archery." Apollo's words earned him a glare from his nephew. Lifting his hands in mock surrender, he added, "But listen, there are 3 essentials to becoming a skilled archer. First," he raised a finger, "always look straight down the arrow shaft to its tip when aiming. Second, hold your breath while focusing to keep steady. And third," he grinned ear to ear, "don't miss." Percy deadpanned. "That last one doesn't exactly sound like advice." Apollo simply patted his head with exaggerated cheerfulness, much to Percy's growing annoyance. "Oh, don't pout. I'll tell you what, once you complete this quest, I'll get you a pair of vambraces so your wrists won't feel sore anymore. Deal, little cousin?" "That's it. You're impossible," Percy finally shouted before leaping at the god, who only laughed louder at the boy's frustrated outburst. Percy had endured enough playful teasing for one afternoon. Two other travelers watched from beneath the shade of an oak tree, mildly amused. The group had stopped to rest in Springfield, Illinois, on their long road trip to Denver, Colorado. "I wonder what Apollo said to annoy Percy this time," a whisker-marked blonde girl mused. Her name was Naruko, and she was curiously observing the scene while sitting nearby. Next to her, a blonde girl in a Yankees cap flipped a page in her book without glancing up. "Those two? Let them be," Annabeth said calmly, returning to her architecture text. "What's an alithio's anyway?" Naruko tilted her head in confusion. "Wait. Why did I suddenly understand that word?" She leaned closer, peering at Annabeth's book. To her surprise, the letters rearranged themselves until she could read them. "Whoa, you're studying architecture of Greece, huh?" Naruko murmured. Annabeth paused, blinking in surprise. "Naruko, since when can you read Greek?" Naruko shrugged. "I don't know. Guess I never really tried before now." Her friend gave her a long, thoughtful look. "Anything else you've been keeping hidden?" Naruko tapped her chin, thinking seriously. I really don't like ghosts?" Annabeth raised a brow. "Noted. I'll remember not to bring you on ghost-busting adventures." She smirked lightly. "Sometimes I wonder if you and Percy both have seawater in your brains." "Hey, wise girl," Naruko retorted, crossing her arms, "I think it's your turn to explain a few things too." "Fair enough." Annabeth set her book aside, her tone turning serious. "But first, Naruko. Who's Sasuke?" Naruko's cheerful expression softened. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she looked away toward the sunrise. "Sasuke was a friend I couldn't save." Annabeth instantly regretted pressing. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked." Naruko offered her a small, reassuring smile. "It's okay. We all carry things from our past." She then tilted her head curiously. "Back at the cabin, you said you didn't want much to do with Poseidon. What did you mean?" Annabeth sighed, realizing Naruko didn't grow up in her world. "In Greek mythology, my mother, Athena, and your father, Poseidon, often competed. For example, in Athens, the people chose between their gifts. Athena gave them the olive tree, and Poseidon gave them a saltwater spring." She chuckled softly. "As you can guess, the olive tree was a bit more practical." Naruko's eyes lit up. "That's amazing. I think a saltwater spring sounds awesome." Annabeth rolled her eyes. "Only you would think so. You really do take after him. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree." "Wow, you're like a walking library of cool facts." Naruko beamed, making Annabeth shake her head with a half smile. Before their conversation could continue, Apollo reappeared, grinning and clasping his hands together dramatically. "Hate to interrupt, lovebirds, but it's almost noon. Time to get moving." "Humph, only funny people talk to birds," Naruko quipped with her trademark grin. "Always with the bird jokes. Can't you come up with anything else?" Apollo teased back. "I thought the sun god would be a little brighter," Naruko shot back, winking playfully. Apollo placed a hand over his heart. "With training from me, you could become my successor someday." "Sorry," Naruko replied with a grin, "but the only one I'd want to succeed is my dad." Her sincerity made everyone smile warmly, even Apollo, whose grin softened with pride. "All right, everyone, into the car," he announced enthusiastically. "Betty's waiting." The group exchanged amused looks but climbed in. Apollo paused mid-step, frowning. "Wait. Everyone into Betty? That didn't sound right." He shook his head, muttering, before starting the car with a grin. At a diner. They had been driving for 10 straight hours before giving in to a very common human need, food. Specifically, Percy's rumbling stomach, much to the amusement, and slight annoyance, of everyone else. Apollo had no issue pulling over, he was hungry too, surprisingly enough. And so, the four of them now found themselves seated together in a booth at a roadside diner, all wearing somewhat awkward expressions. Naruko's expression was the most uneasy of all, mainly because there wasn't a single bowl of ramen on the menu. "Let me get this straight, you don't have any money?" Annabeth asked softly, her eyes narrowing toward the god in question. Apollo gave a sheepish nod, not unlike a puppy caught chewing on a shoe. "As I mentioned, I'm not supposed to interfere with your quest. Driving you to your destination is already stretching the rules. Beyond that, well, I can't really do much," he admitted, lowering his gaze in embarrassment. "Great. And I could really go for a triple cheeseburger right now." Percy muttered, his stomach agreeing loudly. Soon enough, everyone else's stomachs joined in chorus, much to their collective discomfort. Just then, the roar of a motorcycle echoed outside. A biker pulled up, riding a Harley-Davidson chopper decorated with flame designs. Clad in black jeans, combat boots, a leather duster, and a sleeveless shirt, the stranger walked into the diner with calm confidence, completely ignoring the nervous stares of other patrons. As he entered, people quickly stepped aside, some even disappearing into the restrooms. Annabeth instantly felt nervous. Naruko and Percy also felt tense, though alongside their unease was another feeling neither could quite explain, an intense dislike toward the man, almost as if it wasn't entirely their own. "Hey there, kids," the biker greeted before pulling a chair over and sitting at their table without asking. With a casual wave of his hand, the other customers returned to their business as if nothing unusual had happened. The waiter, shaking herself from a daze, immediately turned back to scolding Apollo for his lack of responsibility. "It's fine," the newcomer interrupted with a smirk. "Unlike my half-brother over there, I'm responsible." Apollo forced a small smile at the remark, though it lacked his usual warmth. The man's grin only widened. With a sharp gesture, he sent the waitress back toward the kitchen, her steps suddenly mechanical. "You know," Apollo said with forced cheer, "because of people like you, saints like me get such a bad reputation." "You're no saint," the biker replied flatly. The two gods locked eyes in silence until Apollo yawned dramatically, pretending to be more interested in the view outside. Satisfied, the stranger slid off his sunglasses, revealing not normal eyes, but twin flames burning like miniature suns. Those fiery eyes fixed directly on Percy, who grew restless the longer he stared. "So, you're the one who bested Clarice?" the man asked, his grin unwavering. "She had it coming," Percy said boldly. The man chuckled. "True enough. I don't meddle in my children's quarrels. They can learn on their own." Then his gaze shifted to Naruko. "And you, defeating one of my sons so easily. Impressive." "Your compliments don't mean much to me, Ares," Naruko replied calmly, brushing off the flattery. Before Ares could respond, the waitress returned with a tray of food. He handed her a few gold drachmas. "But these aren't," she began. Ares silenced her with a fiery glance. She quickly retreated to the kitchen, saying nothing more. Apollo sighed dramatically. "Really? Drachmas? You do realize those won't help her pay bills in the mortal world, right? What if she has a family waiting at home? Or responsibilities she can't ignore? Unfair, don't you think?" Ares rolled his flaming eyes. "You can't treat people like that," Naruko and Percy said in unison, glaring. "Too bad," Ares replied casually. "I enjoy shaking things up." Annabeth quickly intervened. "Why are you here?" she asked firmly. Ares leaned back. "I heard you kids were heading to Denver. Thought I'd make things more interesting. Consider this a quest." "We're not interested," Percy grumbled. "Careful, boy," Ares said warningly. "PFFT. I'd rather give up ramen than do your quest," Naruko declared, crossing her arms. Everyone, including Ares, stared at her in surprise. "Are you special or something?" Ares asked incredulously. "Of course I am. I'm the most special person in the universe," Naruko announced proudly, giving a thumbs up. Apollo chuckled. "Only I get to tease my little cousin like that, you big bully. Don't worry, Naruko, you're special in the best way." Thanks," Naruko replied, embarrassed. "Now, about this quest," Ares continued impatiently. "I left my shield at an old water park. Retrieve it for me." "Why don't you go yourself?" Naruko asked. "Because I have more important matters to attend to," Ares said simply. Percy crossed his arms. "And what do we get out of this?" Ares smirked. "Do this, and I'll tell you something important about your mother." That caught Percy's full attention. Without another word, Ares stood, left the diner, and roared away on his motorcycle. Apollo patted his stomach. "Well, that was lively. Shall we get going?" The group looked at their empty plates and silently agreed. Strangely enough, they weren't hungry anymore. "Let's just get this over with," Percy muttered as they headed for the car. Once inside, Naruko asked, "Annabeth, what did Ares mean when he called me special?" "It means you're unique," Apollo answered smoothly before Annabeth could. "That silly fire-eyed guy." Naruko huffed. "Agreed," everyone said together, and with that, the car sped off toward Denver. A few hours had passed since their meeting with the god of war, and the car was mostly quiet, filled only with occasional small talk. Apollo remained unusually silent throughout the ride, even when a few luxury cars zoomed past, honking loudly as they went. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky with warm shades, and Naruko found herself quietly admiring the tranquil scene, attempting to calm her restless thoughts. She had expended a great deal of energy during her encounter with Ares, restraining herself from reacting impulsively, and now she sighed thoughtfully, brushing her whisker-like markings for comfort. "You're still thinking about Ares, aren't you?" a gentle voice asked. Naruko didn't need to look up to know who it was, she simply nodded in acknowledgement. Annabeth closed her book, a faint frown crossing her face. "It's not healthy to keep all your feelings inside, Naruko," Annabeth advised, tilting her head to study her friend more closely. Naruko's expression revealed tension and deep reflection. "I know. It's just. I thought I was done with this endless cycle of conflict. I hoped the world would be different, but I was clearly mistaken," Naruko admitted, her voice tinged with quiet frustration. Annabeth's eyes softened slightly. "It can get complicated. Once you're known, challenges will follow you, sometimes for a long time." Naruko shrugged lightly. "Those challenges are just small obstacles in the grand scheme of things." Her nonchalant attitude quickly drew a disapproving look from Annabeth. "Just because you're the child of one of the big three doesn't mean everyday challenges aren't difficult for others," she stated firmly. Naruko reflected silently, realizing that for Annabeth, these difficulties were deeply personal. "Considering everything we've shared, why have I never heard about your own life? Percy told me about his struggles before discovering he was a demigod. And I've shared so much about my past already," Naruko said, gazing at Annabeth with sincere curiosity. Annabeth hesitated, then met Naruko's eyes. "I never really had a childhood," she began. "My father is a professor at West Point, teaching history. He never prioritized raising me, only doing so when instructed by Athena. It was clear he valued work over parenting. So, I ran away. Since then, I've only communicated with him through letters." She clenched her fists slightly, her emotions evident. "I tried living with him one summer, but as the daughter of an Olympian, I attract attention wherever I go. That's why I've been a full-time Camp Half-Blood member," she explained, holding up a beaded necklace. "Each bead represents a summer spent at the camp. I started running away when I was just 12, and I've earned 5 beads so far." Naruko nodded, feeling a new depth of respect for the girl beside her. Annabeth had faced challenges as difficult, if not more so, than her own. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had endured so much," Naruko said sincerely. Annabeth shook her head, smiling warmly. "All demigods face hardships, but it's Camp Half-Blood that allows us to be ourselves and find happiness. I have no regrets," Annabeth said confidently. Naruko reflected quietly, thinking of her own experiences and past mistakes. She knew it would be easy to dismiss them, but she also understood the importance of learning from them. Nearby, Percy muttered in his sleep, troubled by a nightmare. "After we retrieve the bow, we should talk to him about these dreams," Naruko suggested to Annabeth, who nodded in agreement. "All right everyone, we're about 2 hours away from our destination. Time to wake up and prepare." Apollo called over his shoulder, accelerating smoothly. Naruko and Annabeth quickly decided with a game of rock paper scissors who would wake the sleeping Percy. "Rock, paper, scissors. Rock. Scissors. Fine, I'll wake him up," Naruko said, smiling as she gently nudged Percy awake. "Percy, time to wake up. We're almost there," she said patiently, tapping his shoulder until he stirred. Groaning, Percy rubbed his face. "What's going on? Why do my cheeks feel weird?" "We're nearly at our destination," Naruko replied. "Why didn't you wake me earlier?" Percy asked sleepily. "Because we're entering their territory," Apollo said solemnly. "Their territory?" Naruko and Annabeth asked in unison, sharing a tense glance. "Artemis and her hunters are active nearby, particularly in the forested areas of Colorado," Annabeth explained. "Right," Apollo added, "and because of Naruko's birth mother, it's wise to be careful around Artemis and her companions. But if needed, I can persuade her hunters to let us pass." While Apollo focused on the road, Annabeth rolled her eyes at his dramatic tone. "Meanwhile, country music seems popular these days," Apollo said, switching the radio to a lively station. "What kind of music is this?" Naruko asked, unsure of her opinion. "Simple, rhythmic tunes that rhyme occasionally," Annabeth replied dryly, burying herself back in her book. Percy groaned. "I won't fall asleep to this." "How about rap next? Fast-paced music might suit your generation," Apollo suggested. No, turn it off. The teens shouted, and the sun god complied, lowering the volume. I just remembered, wasn't Ares dating Aphrodite? Percy asked. Annabeth responded without looking up. Yes, he still is. Actually, yes, Apollo added, adjusting his sunglasses. Though rumors suggest there's a disagreement between them. Aphrodite may reconsider their relationship. Naruko shivered at the thought, imagining the influence of such powerful beings. I've met her children, they're remarkable. Imagine meeting their mother, Naruko said thoughtfully. I've never met the goddess, Annabeth replied, but if she's anything like her children, she's certainly formidable. Apollo chuckled. She is kind and caring, truly admirable. Now, let's stay alert for Artemis and her hunters. We'll have you at the water park safely in no time. The three demigods nodded, eyes trained on the passing landscape, quietly watching for any signs of the goddess and her companions. Waterland. Pulling up right outside the main gate, which was padlocked and topped with barbed wire, there was a sign barely legible that read, Water AD. The park looked old and worn, with dry water slides and faded attractions scattered throughout. Pieces of parchment fluttered across the empty pathways, carried by the gentle night breeze, adding to the eerie, abandoned atmosphere. Well, everyone, we've finally arrived. You all know the plan, find Ares' shield and the bow, then return here so we can continue west toward the underworld, Percy instructed. Everyone nodded, understanding the mission, before stepping out of the car and approaching the gate. I guess we'll need to climb over this, Percy said, gripping one of the metal bars and carefully scaling the tall fence. Annabeth followed immediately. As she swung her leg over, she noticed that Naruko was not below them or following along. Hey, you two, don't take too long. A familiar voice called. Turning around, Annabeth saw Naruko leaning casually against a bench, watching them with a bored expression. Once they were all safely on the other side, they regrouped. Naruko's gaze swept over the deserted water park, taking in the dry slides and forgotten attractions. If this place weren't abandoned, and we weren't on a quest, I'd love to come here just for fun someday, Naruko remarked with a wistful whistle. Maybe next time, Naruko. For now, let's focus on finding the items, Annabeth replied. Both nodded, and the trio moved toward a quieter section of the park. Eventually, they reached an empty pool surrounded by a dozen bronze Cupid statues. Above the pool, a faded sign read, The Thrill Ride of Love. In the center, a small pink and white two-seater boat sat, covered with painted hearts. Resting inside was Ares' polished bronze shield. So that's the shield? Percy murmured, scanning the surroundings. Nothing seemed unusual, too easy, perhaps. Annabeth's attention, however, was drawn to a particular Cupid statue. Unlike the others, it was made entirely of gold, and the bow it held was unique, a composite of bronze, with a bowstring of the same material. Naruko, come look at this. Annabeth called. Naruko hurried over, her curiosity piqued, and immediately recognized the bow's significance. This must be the legacy of Philoctetes, Naruko explained. Looks like it belonged to Hercules. This is almost too simple. Despite their unease, Naruko gently grasped the bow. It hummed warmly in her hands, glowing faintly as if acknowledging her presence. With a soft tug, the bow separated from the statue's grip. As the light faded, the bow transformed into a small, shining flashlight. An enchanted bow. I'm not surprised, Annabeth remarked, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Still, it shouldn't be this easy. All right, I'll get the shield now, Percy announced. He carefully stepped into the pool, approaching the boat. Annabeth noticed carved letters on the base of the golden Cupid and crouched to examine them. Ada. That's the Greek letter H. Could it be someone's mark? Realization dawned on her suddenly. Percy, wait, don't touch the shield, she shouted. But Percy had already reached for it, triggering a surprise trap. Suddenly, the bronze Cupid's eyes lit up, and mechanical parts whirred into action, forming a complex net-like structure across the pool. It's a trap, Annabeth exclaimed. Hephaestus set this up to test us. Sure enough, cameras hidden inside the statues began recording, broadcasting their every move. Percy sprinted with the shield, but Naruko quickly assessed the situation. Mechanical spiders emerged from the mirrors along the pool's edge, scattering across the floor. All right, a swarm of mechanical spiders and a net, time to act fast, Naruko muttered. She looked at Annabeth, who was perched atop a Cupid statue, waving her arms in panic. Naruko moved swiftly, formulating a plan. Using her teleportation skills, she quickly zipped to Annabeth, then to Percy's side in the boat, keeping everyone safe. Percy, let's get out of here. Naruko instructed, forming hand seals. Percy, understanding, activated his water controlling abilities, creating a burst of rushing water that cleared a path through the pool. The boat rocked but soon reached the end of the ride safely. Hold on tight. Naruko warned, helping Annabeth balance while walking steadily across the water using her unique abilities. Percy gripped the boat, awestruck. Wait. You can walk on water? He asked in disbelief. Yep, and a few other tricks too, Naruko said with a wink. Annabeth gave her a sharp glance, but Naruko only smiled. Their relief was short-lived. From across the pool, the golden Cupid statue reappeared, now holding a silver bow. It clearly intended to retrieve the bow. Looks like we have a stubborn friend, Naruko observed. She drew her toy fan, which shimmered into a gleaming tachi in her hands. The Cupid fired a barrage of silver arrows. Naruko deftly dodged most, deflecting the last one with her tachi, which vibrated warmly in her hand as it absorbed the energy from the arrow. Naruko prepared to confront the statue, determination sparkling in her eyes. Clang. I wasn't expecting this, Naruko said aloud, a bit sheepishly. Her sword had no effect on the statue, and if anything, it seemed slightly more agitated after she left a tiny scratch on it. Dodging a swift overhead swing from the statue, Naruko realized she needed a new strategy. No sooner had she begun thinking than the Cupid statue released a fresh volley of arrows. Frustrated, she darted and weaved to avoid them. Naruko, use the bow. It's the only thing that can work, since only the true wielder can succeed. Annabeth called out from a short distance. That makes sense, Naruko thought. She pulled out a flashlight and aimed it at the statue. To her surprise, the statue appeared momentarily concerned, or at least, that's what she imagined from its perfectly stoic expression. Get ready to be stopped, you overgrown Cupid, she joked at the statue before pressing the flashlight button. To everyone's amazement, it powered on, projecting light onto the Cupid statue. Try twisting the lens, Percy suggested after recovering and thinking fast. Naruko twisted the end of the flashlight near the lens. The device glowed brightly and transformed into a bronze composite bow. The Cupid statue took a cautious step back, clearly hesitant. But there's no arrow, she exclaimed. Just pull back on the bowstring and release. Annabeth instructed firmly. What? Why? Just trust me. Naruko gritted her teeth, followed the instructions, and pulled back on the string. To her amazement, an arrow made of pure light appeared on the bow. She focused, aimed, and released. The arrow shot straight for the Cupid statue, striking it. A radiant light enveloped the statue, and moments later, its pieces scattered harmlessly across the area. That bow is incredible, Percy exclaimed, standing beside Naruko, who had stepped out of the pool. He looked to Annabeth. How did you know that plan would work? Call it women's intuition, she replied with a sly smile. You came up with that plan so fast? Naruko asked in disbelief. Of course, Annabeth said confidently, her smirk unwavering. Athena always has a plan. Except when it comes to spiders, Percy muttered. Both girls laughed at him, prompting a mock glare from Annabeth. All right, let's head back and meet Apollo, Naruko said, and the three demigods began walking toward the main gate. When they returned to the car, Apollo greeted them with a bright smile. I knew you'd handle it. A small, determined angel couldn't have done it alone, he said, lifting his sunglasses. Though, you all look a bit worn out. Oh, give me a break, Percy retorted, and Apollo merely smiled, motioning for them to get in. As Naruko approached the passenger door, she noticed something odd. Hey, Apollo, I think your aim needs some work, she said, pointing to the right rear wheel of his car, where a silver arrow was lodged. Apollo's jaw dropped. Percy and Annabeth came over to investigate. Percy laughed, wow, your aim really is off, while Annabeth's expression grew serious. This arrow wasn't ordinary, it radiated a strange aura, as though fired by a very powerful being. She glanced at Apollo, who nodded gravely. This arrow belongs to her, doesn't it? She asked. Apollo sighed, yes. One of the few things that can truly make me nervous is my little sister when she's upset. And judging by this, she is not pleased. Naruko felt a chill. She remembered tales of Artemis' fierce protectiveness. Annabeth asked cautiously, can we still leave? Apollo shook his head. If she's as formidable as my sister says, it's too late to avoid her. Who are we talking about? Naruko asked nervously. My sister's hunt team, Apollo replied. Suddenly, A silver arrow gently touched Naruko's shoulder. She looked up to see a striking, poised girl with a silver circlet braided into her dark hair. Percy and Annabeth were similarly cornered, while Apollo leaned casually against the car, unfazed. "Apollo, what have you been up to now?" the girl's powerful, calm voice asked. "Not much, Zoe. How's hunting been going?" Apollo teased with a smile, though Zoe's glare remained firm. "I see you haven't matured much, Lord Apollo," she replied, holding her composure. "Enough pleasantries. We're here because you and." She glanced at Annabeth, Percy, and then Naruko. "Your group interrupted our hunt. Lady Artemis requests an audience with you, only." Apollo raised an eyebrow at being excluded but said nothing. Zoe turned her attention to the three demigods. "I am Zoe Nightshade, lieutenant of Lady Artemis," she said. "We are the hunters of Artemis, mortals, demigods, and nymphs who have sworn loyalty to the goddess Artemis." Naruko, curious and cautious, listened intently. "And I'm Naruko Uzumaki," she announced, standing her ground. "We all have names, you know." Zoe was unimpressed but kept her focus on them. "Apollo, he resembles you closely," she noted. "He is my cousin," Apollo said cheerfully. So they had been informed. She then turned her back toward the three teenagers and gave a subtle hand signal to her fellow guardians. Instantly, they began guiding the teens toward an unknown destination. Apollo, exhaling quietly, followed them with calm determination, matching their brisk pace. "Where are you taking us, you determined Amazons?" Naruko asked, all while quietly strategizing a clever way to turn the situation to her advantage without causing conflict. "Quiet, you insolent being," the leader replied sharply, though without personal malice. "You, child of the goddess who has come to test Lady Artemis's patience, are the one we must speak to directly. Whether you wish it or not, an audience awaits." "For someone who calls me troublesome, you certainly enjoy expressing yourself loudly, Zoe," Apollo remarked, earning a glare from the leader. Unsurprisingly, a spirited exchange of words began, with both discussing matters from the past and the present. "Don't worry, everyone. I'm sure Artemis isn't as harsh as she may have seemed before. As they say, time heals all things," Annabeth said, offering Naruko reassurance. Yet Naruko couldn't help but feel a flutter of anxiety about meeting her mother's formidable counterpart. "Mom, Aura, guide me so I do not stumble in this encounter," she silently prayed. If fortune smiled upon her, she hoped to navigate the meeting gracefully. Whether or not she would leave unscathed, she knew that it would certainly be a test of her courage and composure. Dear YouTube family, this is all for now. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel to keep the journey alive. Thank you for your support. Warm dear YouTube family. This is all for now. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel to keep the journey alive. Thank you for your support. Warm regards. Anime Dreams.